again, are due to spammers. So spammers, like I mentioned, are doing things like dictionary attacks. Maybe they're stealing lists by breaking into computers. Maybe they're doing other nefarious things as well. So typically they have a very high unknown user rate. And so ISPs recognize that, and they block email if your unknown user rate exceeds 10%. So that's the key here, is you want to keep it under 10%. 10% I would say is still pretty high. Like I mentioned before, most excellent mailers have an unknown user rate below 0.1%. If you're using an email service provider, they're probably handling that perfectly well for you. There's probably nothing you need to do with that except check your bounce reports from your ESP to make sure that that is under that acceptable threshold. And you can see from the chart too what your unknown user rate, if you do have a high unknown user rate, what that can do to your sender score. So good mailers have an unknown user rate of 0.2%, so anything above 90. And then you can see anything above the 9% range, your sender score starts to decline. And you're probably wondering, well, why the 41 to 50 sender score has a lower bounce rate than the next range up? Well, because at that point, most of your emails are probably getting blocked, so your emails can't get through to even be measured as an unknown user at that point. Now, spam traps really come into two flavors, like I mentioned before. And I talked in depth about the decoy accounts, so the internet service providers that are just setting up fake email accounts, so like joe@hotmail.com, and they're seeing if they're going to start to receive any email to it. Because if they do, they know they've never opted into anything because they're not signing up with that email. The other thing that they do is they use recycled accounts. So this may sound a little bit tricky, but I'll tell you why they're doing that. And what I mean is, let's say I have an email account, tom@hotmail.com, and I'm using it for a while, and then I decide to switch over to Gmail. After about a 12-month period, after abandoning my account, it's going to return an unknown user code like we talked about in the previous slide. After that, Hotmail may decide, you know what, I'm going to recycle this into a spam trap. Reason why is because I want to catch people that aren't processing bounces correctly. I want to see if maybe people are sharing their lists with other people after the fact. Maybe they're renting lists, maybe they're buying lists. But the reason why they do it is it's an overall general reflection of your list quality. They want to make sure that you're following best practices, that you're removing unknown users, you're not doing things like opt-out techniques, so like buying lists, renting lists, things like that. So really the best practice here is to maintain good list hygiene and don't use questionable purchased lists. And I would say avoid purchasing